Now, I joined the club initially as a student in Washington, D.C. in '63. All right, I had a white 59 sunroof, 58 sunroof coupe. All right, again, couldn't join unless you had a car serial number, so I joined. And the whole thrust of the club at Potomac region was to service the cars. The club at that point had this love-hate relationship with dealers. First of all, dealers were the only supplier of parts. You could not buy parts anywhere for your car unless it came from a dealer. There were no auto supply stores. Nothing existed, right? And everybody felt like the dealer was charging way too much for parts and for service.
Yeah, and they wanted like
and that's
$4.
when they started.
They wanted $4 for a wheel bearing or something
Yeah, right.
like that. So yeah.
Right. So that's when they started this whole business with people writing books about how to fix your Porsche, okay? Which was probably a follow-up from that guy that wrote that book on how to live with your VW from years before.
Yeah.
You know? And and people were getting into the hands-on thing, but people in the club were starting to turn their nose up at some of these people that were buying 911s and didn't know how to check the oil. All right, that was a standard. These people, they just have a lot of money. They don't know what they're doing. And we all thought part of membership in the club was maintaining your own car. That was what you were supposed to do, and for a lot of us, students and so forth, that's what's what allowed us to keep them on the road, because we couldn't afford to pay somebody. You had to just go buy a book.
And that's when the 356 registry started? Was
yeah.
that, so, because, oh my God, the 911 is...
They're going the wrong direction.
Right.
Right.
So there was, originally with the 911, and then again in 74 with the long nose, there's another, these are too big.
Another concern, right.
And then we had the 924, the air-cooled, water-cooled front-engine cars that, oh my God, this is a travesty here. Were there any other breakpoints like that?
No, well, of course, that's the whole air-cooled, water-cooled 1999. All right, everything 98 and earlier is air-cooled. Everything after that was water-cooled heads because they'd reached the limit of how much they could cool a four-cylinder engine with air. And although the cars, each year, every year, the cars, going all the way back to 356s, have gotten bigger, heavier, faster. It's like, what? Bigger, heavier, faster? How do they do that? I mean, bigger and heavier should have made them slower. Never did. Okay? And through the years, they changed the technology of suspension and everything else to keep ahead of, but every car was always better than the one before it. Always. Never had a bad one. Now, they went down a couple of rabbit holes that didn't work. My sense was they went to the 928 because Mercedes was selling a lot of SLs. And they saw that marketplace and said, hey, we could sell a V8 highway, Autobahn cruiser, with our technology, let's try it. So they put an engine in the front, the transmission in the rear, and they had a lot of technology, and the Y-sack rear end where everything moved around, but there just really wasn't a big enough market to sustain it. But what did get sustained was the 911. They just kept plugging them out. They just kept improving them each year, every year. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. So to the point where, as you say, now you got a, GT2 RS rocket ship that I shouldn't be allowed to drive because they're just way too capable.
In that period, when they started putting other cars out other than the 911, if you looked out to the rest of the automotive world,
right.
They were stumbling through the same problems in a slightly different way depending on who the car was.
Right, you don't think about it now, but the 1976 Corvette, top of the line, was 185 horsepower. It was because of all the emission control requirements and so forth. I mean, cars during that period were not good cars.
No.
Yeah. And somehow Porsche made it through all of that and then some.
Right. Go back to the muscle car era. Nowadays, any of the standard Porsches will run and hide from anything we used to think were fast back in those days.
Right. Yeah, but now you can buy a minivan with 300 horsepower. Hello.
Yeah. We do a lot of. I'm a member of the 356 group, and we do a lot of backcountry road driving. And what we look for is a classic picture book, New England road, stone walls and turns and twists. And
minimal traffic with a restaurant at the end.
Yes.
Back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We do these drives, and just drives on country roads, and you're driving your car, 356, at top speed for the 356. And then you gotta stop because some lady at a stoplight in her SUV, that's too big for her to drive, and kids in the back, pulls out of a side road and goes away and leaves you and you can't catch her. But we're having fun driving. And she's standing on the seat to turn over her shoulder to look out the back window so she won't back into a car.
Yeah.
It's that whole automotive industry was going through an upheaval, a redefinition, and with the electric cars and with the self-driving cars, the cars as we know it probably will disappear.
Probably, I mean, but as far as the club is concerned, and these are, the current club is now facing with a different group, the same sort of concerns that we faced 30, 40 years ago.
Yes.
Because now you've got SUVs, Macans and Cayennes, where do they go? Now you got Panameras, these are all Porsche products. How do you include those people into the club? Okay, and at the same time keep them amused and occupied, and we said the same thing 40 years ago when they came out with 924s and 944s. This isn't our market. What are we going to do with these people? You know, but somehow they all got.
Yeah, but
they all came in.
And again, it is something that we wrestle with and we need to wrestle with. But it still seems to me that there's a lot more commonality between the 914 and the 924 and the 356.
Looking back now, yes.
Looking back now, but
right. But at the time, they were what we perceived as huge differences.
But still, the people who bought a 924 or bought a 914 were looking for that car to drive, to have fun driving.
Yes, right.
And there were people buying a new Cayenne who were taking their kids to school and
Private
they're not private school, but they're not necessarily looking to drive it for fun.
Right.
So the umbrella that is the Porsche Club, he has to wrestle with that issue.
Right. Is it going to continue to include all of those people? Some of those people? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, now as Norm just pointed out, now we've got a wave of the future of self-driving cars. Where do they fit in a club that is all about driving? It's like what?
Yes.
You know.
Well, and again, I mean, it is a club that's about driving, and it was certainly started as a club that's about driving. But one of the things that's been mentioned today that's interesting to me was that which I really hadn't thought of as much, is it was not just a club that was about driving, it was also a club about maintaining your cars.
Yes.
There was a support.
That was a very big part of it.
Oh,
Right.
that was-
A support
Yes.
group so that you could maintain your cars yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
Which
that,
is still, the club does that, to
Yes.
a certain extent now. But obviously, we have plenty of people in the club for whom that's not an important issue.